look like I just woke up. It's probably because I did not that long ago. As you know, I was out of town from Wednesday evening through yesterday evening. I just got back in town last night. I had a mini reunion with some of my closest friends and fraternity brothers from college. Had a good time. Yeah, I also spent some quality time with a young lady. Yeah, we had a good time. 5 stars. 5 stars. Speaking of the time I spent with this young lady, because she's very familiar. She watches my YouTube videos. And so she's very familiar with the manosphere, a lot of the talking points in the manosphere. Yeah. And I was telling her that, and this has been going on for a long time, man. Some guys, man, just be putting words in my mouth that I didn't say, man. And it just trips me out when people do that. Some guys, not a lot of guys. I ain't gonna say it's a lot of guys who do this. It might be only a very small percentage of guys, but some guys. There's been an old saying that some people hear what they want to hear. They hear what they want to hear. They don't listen to what you're actually saying. They hear what they want to hear based on what they want to hear. And if I had to give one example off the top of my head, I think I covered this in a video like maybe 3 weeks ago or so, where I said that some guys start saying, Alan, I thought you said that being red pill as well as being Mo 1 was about being anti-marriage, anti-long-term relationships, and anti-monogamy, and even a couple guys threw in anti-children. And I basically was like, when did I ever say that? When did I ever say that? You ain't never heard them words come out my mouth. But that's an example of what I'm talking about how guys will hear what they want to hear. And well, let me say this in defense of men, though. A lot of women have done the same thing, so I ain't going to just focus exclusively on guys with this criticism. Some women do that, too. I mentioned this also, I think, more so in a Patreon exclusive video, that I've had women who read my book, or more so just heard about my book, and they'll come to the automatic assumption and conclusion that Mo 1 is all about the pursuit of short-term non-monogamous casual sex, when it's not. Now, well, one book is. The one book that is about the pursuit, exclusively about the pursuit of short-term non-monogamous casual sex, would be Mo 1 Hardcore. Mo 1 Hardcore. Yeah, my ebook called Mo 1 Hardcore. Now, that book, that ebook, is about specifically the pursuit of short-term non-monogamous casual sex. But my regular Mo 1 book, the 1999 version, 2006 version, the updated 2017 ebook version, which somebody just gave me some great feedback about that version. Yeah, I had a guy just in the last week. He said he got the updated 2017 ebook version of Mo 1. He literally ranked it as the best self-help book he's ever read to do with dealing with women. Yep, he actually said that. He said that's the best self-help book he has ever read in his entire life related to dealing with women. I appreciated that high compliment. And then my 2014 audiobook version. But again, my main Mo 1 book is about the pursuit of all 4 types of sex. Again, there's only 4 types of sexual companionship you're going to engage in with women. And that would be short-term non-monogamous sexual companionship, short-term monogamous sexual companionship, long-term non-monogamous sexual companionship, and long-term monogamous sexual companionship. Those are 4 general types of sexual companionship you can ever pursue. Short-term non-monogamous, short-term monogamous, long-term non-monogamous, and long-term monogamous. Now, I know the term long-term, short-term might vary from man to man. I've always given my own definition, but that doesn't mean you have to adopt my definition. You might have your own different definitions for what you constitute as long-term versus short-term. For me, I consider a long-term sexual relationship is any relationship that lasts roughly a year or longer. A year or longer. Actually, I would say preferably 15 months or longer. 15 months or longer, but I'd say minimum a year or longer. That's what I categorize as a long-term relationship. If you're in a relationship that has lasted 15 months or longer, and I'd say bare minimum 12 months or longer, that means you're involved in a long-term relationship, whether it's long-term monogamous or long-term non-monogamous. I define a short-term relationship as any relationship that's roughly 11 months or less. 11 months or less. It can be as short as 1 day, 24 hours, or it can be as long as roughly 11 months. I consider anything 11 months or less as a short-term relationship, whether it's short-term monogamous or short-term non-monogamous. And yeah, Mode 1 applies to the pursuit of all 4 types of relationships. Again, long-term monogamous, long-term non-monogamous, short-term monogamous, short-term non-monogamous. It doesn't apply just exclusively. But yeah, I've had men say, Alan, I thought, you did a video where you mentioned marriage. I thought being red pill and or Mode 1 was anti-marriage. Please show me the quote in my book where I said I've never said I was anti-marriage. Even in the Beta Male Revolution, that's probably the one book where I probably do the most discussion about marriage is the Beta Male Revolution. But I never said I was anti-marriage. Because see, here's the thing, man, that you got to understand about marriage. Marriage is neither a good thing or a bad thing. Marriage is neither a good thing or a bad thing. Marriage is what it is. I'm sure most of y'all heard that comment about different things, aspects of life, where people say it is what it is. When people say it is what it is, one of the things they're saying is that means it's neither good or bad. It's all about your matter of perspective. Remember I did a video in 2017 where I kept emphasizing the word perspectives. All about the best example of perspective, of course, is the old concept of placing 4. I got a doctor's appointment, so I got to watch the clock. Hold on. Yeah, I can only talk for a few more minutes because I got a doctor's appointment. So I'm gonna talk for a few more minutes, then upload this video. Then I'm not gonna record the Patreon exclusive video right after this. I'm probably gonna record that later on this afternoon and then upload it. But after I finish recording this video, I gotta go to the doctor's appointment, check on my health. I have a doctor's appointment at least once every 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Yeah, I think once every 3 months. I go to my family physician. She gonna dog me though, because I've gained weight, man. Since mid to late December, I've gained about somewhere between 20 to 25 pounds. I gotta get focused again. Yep. Yeah, man. The last week in December, I was as low as 207. I was as low as 207. And when I weighed myself, I think yesterday morning, I think I was like 230 or 231. So I got to get back down. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But yeah, the best concept that evaluates how different people could have a different perspective on things is the classic evaluating 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass. 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass. What's the general 2 perspectives you can have on that? Well, technically 3. You can have an optimistic perspective. You can have a realistic perspective. Or you can have a pessimistic perspective. Those would be the 3 perspectives you can have about that 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass. You can have an optimistic perspective, a realistic perspective, or a pessimistic perspective. What would be the difference? If you look at 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass and you say, wow, that glass is half full, that means you're attaching an optimistic perspective to that 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass. What you're basically saying is, I believe the starting point of that glass was 0 ounces of water, but then someone poured 4 ounces of water in there, and more than likely, someone is going to pour an additional 4 ounces of water in that glass sometime in the near future, which will make the glass full. So your perspective is that glass is half full. I would call that the optimistic perspective. And there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, as long as you don't transition into the zone of being delusional. You never want to transition into the zone of going from being optimistic and positive-minded to being delusional. But yeah, that would be the optimistic perspective. On the flip side, you can look at 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass and say, that glass is half empty. That glass is half empty. What you're basically saying is, I believe that originally there was 8 ounces of water in that glass, and someone either poured 4 ounces out or drank 4 ounces out of that glass. So now there's only 4 ounces remaining, and it's probably going to dwindle in the near future. Going to go down to 3 ounces, then 2 ounces, then 1 ounce, then no ounces. That would mean you're evaluating that 4 ounces of glass without knowing the facts of the history of the glass from a pessimistic perspective. Pessimistic perspective. Yes. And then right in the middle between optimistic perspective and pessimistic perspective would be realistic perspective, which would simply be saying there's 4 ounces of water in that 8-ounce glass. You saying there's 4 ounces of water in that 8-ounce glass. You stating the facts. That's just the facts. That's not your interpretation of the facts, but just the facts. You understand that? See, if you remember, if you've been following me for a long time, again, I got to watch the clock, but I gave a similar analogy back in 2017 when I think the video was called, it was called Objective Truth versus Subjective Truth. Objective truth versus subjective truth. And I said, there's a difference. Like, some people think truth is just truth. No, there's a difference between objective truth and subjective truth. There's a difference. There's a difference. And I just kind of gave you an example of the difference. Objective truth, going back to that glass of water, would be if I said there's 4 ounces of water in that 8-ounce glass. That would be representative of objective truth. But if you said that glass is half full, on the flip side, you said that glass is half empty, that's subjective truth. That's not objective truth. That's subjective truth. The example I used in 2017 had to do with the weather. I said, I said, let's say you had two people that were traveling to Chicago. And let's say in Chicago, it was 65 degrees. Let's say it was 65 degrees in Chicago. And one person came from a city where it was 40 degrees. Where it was 40 degrees. Okay? And the other person came from a city where it was 90 degrees. What do you think their subjective response is going to be? If the person who traveled from a city where it was 40 degrees travels to Chicago where it's 65 degrees, they're going to say, man, it's warm in Chicago. They're going to say, it's warm in Chicago. But on the flip side, the person who traveled from the city where it was 90 degrees is going to say, man, it's kind of nippy in Chicago. Now, who's telling more of the truth? The person who says it's nippy or the person who says it's warm? Well, the truth of the matter is both of them are telling the truth. But they're telling subjective truth. The person who says it's warm is telling the truth, but it's subjective truth based on where they came from. The person who said it's nippy in Chicago is telling the truth, but it's subjective truth based on where they came from. You following me here? You follow me? I hope you follow me. I hope I ain't going over too many people's head with this. Now, if you just simply said it's 65 degrees in Chicago, that would be representative of objective truth. You can't deny that or argue with that. That's objective truth. That's how you know you saying something that's objectively true, is when you cannot debate it or argue with it at all. You can't debate that my name is Alan Roger Currie. You can't. You can't debate that today is Monday, July 22nd, unless you live in a city or country where it happens to be, 24 hours ahead or something. You can't debate that I have 4 books. That's a fact. Actually, a minimum of 4 books. Technically, I have more than that, but mainly 4 books. As objective. Objective truth is something you can absolutely positively, you cannot debate it. You cannot argue it. If you can debate something or argue something, that's not representative of objective truth. That's representative of subjective truth. Because objective truth, you can't argue with it. If it's 65 degrees in Chicago, you can't argue with that. Can't debate that. But if you express subjective truth, which is, hey, it's warm in Chicago, you can debate that. If you come from a city, where it was hotter than Chicago. And on the flip side, the guy, a man or woman who came from the city where it was real warm, 90 degrees, and they say it's nippy in Chicago, I could debate that. If I came from a city where it was chilly. Now just apply that all to a lot of aspects of dating. Like I hear people say, marriage sucks. Marriage sucks. Okay, then why people still get married then? Why people can still get married? Why are there some married couples that have never filed for a divorce or gotten separated? If marriage sucks. My brother's married. He's about to have his 11-year anniversary. I ain't never heard him complain once about marriage. So if marriage sucks, how come my brother enjoys it? If marriage sucks, how come my brother enjoys it? I was just with some of my frat brothers. And at least, 2/3 of them, of my fraternity brothers that I pledged with, they're married. Some of them been married for as long as almost going on 30 years. Yeah, I got at least 2 frat brothers. No, 3. I got at least 3 fraternity brothers that I pledged with. Their marriage is headed towards 30 years. So for somebody to say marriage sucks, that's not a fact. You can express that as an opinion. Everybody's entitled to opinions, but if you express that as a fact, I'll be able to break you down and destroy you. Because that's not a fact that marriage sucks. I did a Blog Talk Radio episode about that. It was called if marriage is so great, why so many divorces? But if marriage is so bad, why are men still proposing marriage and still getting married? It's all about perspective, man. Marriage, to me, is neither good or bad. It's about what you make it. Number one, for starters, it's about choosing the right woman. Or well, since I'm talking mostly men, I'll say choose the right woman. But of course, for women, about choosing the right man. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that's going to contribute whether you have a good marriage, great marriage, a disappointing marriage, or horrible marriage, is the quality of woman you choose. You got to vet the woman, man, before you propose marriage. But I disagree with guys who come at me saying, Alan, you should be telling guys not to get married. I ain't going to never tell no guy not to get married. That's a personal decision. That's a personal decision. I ain't going to tell no guy not to get married. But yeah, there's nothing in my books where I express anti-marriage. And similarly, some guys have quoted me or misinterpreted me as suggesting that I'm anti-long-term relationships. I ain't never said that. The only relationship that I have openly said that I kind of frown on, for me personally, not for everybody, but for me, Alan Roger Currie, is long-term, strictly monogamous relationships. I'm not into long-term, strictly monogamous romantic relationships. Most of the time that I do long-term relationships, with rare exceptions here and there, I do long-term polyamorous relationships. I don't do long-term, strictly monogamous relationships. But that's an Alan Roger Currie thing. I wouldn't say that applies to every man in society. That's me. Yeah, the one thing I say in my book, Debating My Revolution, I don't believe in what I call obligatory monogamy, which is when you're monogamous to someone because you feel like you're supposed to be or you have to be. I believe in voluntary monogamy, when you're simply choosing to be monogamous with someone. I'm all for voluntary monogamy, but I'm not for obligatory monogamy. So that's the closest thing I've come to saying I'm against something. Alan Roger Currie, I prefer not to engage in long-term. Because when it comes again to those 4 types of sexual companionship, I always talk about, as a self-help guru, you got to have credibility. And if I had to rank my credibility in each 4 of the categories from highest to lowest degree of credibility, is highest degree of credibility I have is short-term non-monogamous sex. That's been the vast majority of my sexual relationships in my life, is short-term non-monogamous sex. Again, I define short-term as any sexual relationship that lasts at the absolute longest approximately 11 months. Anywhere from 1 day to 11 months is short-term to me. Long-term is any relationship that lasts preferably 15 months or longer, but no less than 12 months or longer is long-term. So yeah, my highest credibility is in the area of short-term non-monogamous sex. Second highest degree of credibility I would say I have is when it comes to long-term non-monogamous sex, long-term non-monogamous sexual relationships. Third would be short-term monogamous. And probably my lowest level of credibility is long-term strictly monogamous. I've only had like probably 2 or 3 of those relationships in my entire life. But yeah, man, marriage is what each individual couple makes it. Marriage is what each individual couple makes it. And I can go with a lot of things. People say, having children, that's a horrible thing. You shouldn't have children anymore. Really? Insert dog face here. What if your mother or biological mother or biological father had said that we shouldn't have any children? You wouldn't be here. Shoot, I'm glad my mother and father decided to have children. I'm glad because I got the gift of life. It's come with its challenges. It's come with its unexpected episodes of adversity. But I'm here. I'm doing well. So, a lot of things to do with life in general and to do with dating relationships comes down to a matter of perspective. You know, I hear a lot of men on YouTube always complaining about behavior of women, and they'll say stuff like, all women are fucked up. That's your perspective. That's not a fact. That's your perspective. Even more specifically, I hear a lot of black male guys say all black women are fucked up. I ain't never said that. You ain't never heard me say that. Because most of the black women I've dealt with in my life have treated me like a motherfucking king. And I'm just keeping it real. They treated me like a damn king. Y'all know the story. I've had black women buy me clothes. I've had black women pay my bills. I've had black women let me use their cars. I've had at least one black woman invited me to fuck her own sister. I've had sex with a black mother and a daughter before. Why would I ever have any motivation to say black women ain't shit? And see, now somebody's going to say, see, I told you, L.T. Currie, he's benefited from black female fuckery. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But I know most of the sisters I've dealt with, I've had my way with. Particularly when it comes to casual sex. Now, again, when it comes to long-term monogamous relationships, that wouldn't be a true statement. But when it comes to casual sex, yeah, most of them black women I dealt with, I had my way with. Particularly when I was in my 20s and 30s, I had my way with them. Perspective, man. Perspective. You're going to always evaluate things from your perspective based on your past experiences, your past observations. That's going to formulate your opinions, your attitudes, your beliefs. Perspective. Keep that in mind. In my Patreon exclusive portion, which I probably won't record until a little later this afternoon, is going to center around stuff to do with dating versus being in a relationship. A lot of people use that interchangeably. But I wrote an article in Examiner a while back. There's a distinction between the dating process and relationship process. And then I'm going to touch on some of the things to do with marriage, since I brought up marriage. I want to talk about that there's at least minimum 2 or 3 benefits for men of getting married. A lot of men want to act like there's no benefits to marriage. I disagree. At bare minimum, there's at least 2 or 3 benefits for men to get married. And I'm going to discuss that in my Patreon exclusive portion. Okay. What I want to talk about in the Patreon portion first is just a real brief thing. I wrote an article years ago on examiner.com about the difference between dating and relationships. That's why you always hear people use the term dating and relationships. Because I notice at least a small percentage of people, they use those terms interchangeably. They almost treat dating and being in a relationship as if it's the same thing, but it's not. Dating centers around the process of finding a new romantic or strictly sexual companion. That's what dating centers around. Dating centers around the process of finding a new and different romantic companion or strictly sexual companion. Relationships centers around maintaining the interest and companionship of a romantic partner or a strictly sexual partner. A romantic partner, what I mean by romantic is someone you spend time with both sexually and non-sexually, or a strictly sexual partner such as a fuck buddy. So that's the difference between dating and relationships. Because I was in Indianapolis last week and women will always bring this up. So I ain't going to criticize too many men. It's mainly women. Women will always say, well, Alan, how do you have the credibility to be a relationship coach when you're not married or you're not even in a long-term relationship right now? And I always have to tell them, I say, because I'm not a relationship coach. I'm a dating coach. And typically they'll say, what's the difference? Like I had these two women when I was in Indianapolis ask me that question and have that response. They're basically like, what's the difference? I thought, what's the difference between the two? There's a big difference between the two. Again, dating is to being in a relationship what shopping for consumer items is to actually buying the consumer items. Yeah. Dating is like shopping. Being in a relationship is like buying. So again, dating centers around the process of finding and connecting with a new and different romantic partner or strictly sexual partner. And being in a relationship. So people who are relationship experts and relationship coaches or marriage experts, they center around helping men and women maintain a relationship over a period of months and years. Maintain a relationship over a period of... Now, I do occasionally give relationship advice. I've given relationship advice to both married and unmarried couples occasionally. Like probably the number one area I do that in is under the umbrella of BDSM and polyamory. That's probably where I have the highest percentage of couple clients, both married couples and unmarried couples, is if you go to mo1.net/training, mo1.net/training. That's where I do a lot of my consultations with couples. But when it comes to most of my clients under the category of men's dating coach, I center around dating, giving advice to men and centers around helping them find and connect with a new and different romantic companion or strictly sexual companion. So I just wanted to clear that up real quick. Second thing I want to talk about is, and I wrote, speaking of articles I wrote for the Examiner, I wrote an article about this in the Examiner. And I think I did a video about this in 2018 where I basically said, monogamy is not for everyone. Monogamy is not for everyone. But I would say that about two other concepts. I would say promiscuity is not for everyone. Promiscuity is not for everyone. And right in between is polyamory. Yeah, you can say if monogamy is on this far end and promiscuity is on this far end, right smack it dab in the middle would be polyamory, which of course I just mentioned that I'm a consultant for couples who are interested in opening up their relationship or marriage. Yeah, what's known as a polyamorous relationship. Another nickname for it is simply an open marriage or open relationship. Now, neither one of those three things is for everyone. So no one should talk as if they assume like it is, because it's not. Yeah, strict monogamy, particularly long-term strict monogamy, is definitely not for everyone. Not every man is built for long-term strict monogamy. Not every woman is built for long-term strict monogamy. It depends on, I would say it depends on that person's social programming, depends on their moral values, integrity, ethics, their religious background or cultural background. All those things play a factor into whether or not a man or woman will highly prefer long-term strict monogamy or if they won't. Yeah, it's your social programming / cultural conditioning, your social programming / cultural conditioning, along with that, your religious background or lack thereof, your religious or spiritual background or lack thereof, and just your overall morals, values, and ethics. That's going to contribute to whether you can successfully maintain a long-term, strictly monogamous marriage or a long-term, strictly monogamous romantic relationship or not. But I know a lot of men on the exact opposite end, they don't care for a life of one-night stands, weekend flings, and just other variations of, strictly sex-oriented casual sex. Or as some people call it, pump and dump sex. Pump and dump sex. I give you the best example off the top of my head would be my own brother. That's one of the reasons why my brother got married. Yeah, when my brother got to about his late 30s and early 40s, he basically told me, he said casual sex, short-term non-monogamous casual sex was no longer doing anything for him. He said it was still physically pleasurable in terms of physical pleasure and satisfaction. Casual sex is okay, but in terms of emotional fulfillment, which, see, a lot of people, it's funny, a lot of people, and particularly men, they tend to associate the concept of emotional fulfillment far more with women than they do with men. But there's a lot of men who are looking for an emotionally gratifying relationship with a woman. Not just a physically or sexually gratifying relationship. But I know I got a number of frat brothers. Now that's one of the main reasons why they told me why they got married. Is because they said they wanted an emotionally gratifying relationship with a woman. Not just a purely physical or sexually gratifying relationship. They wanted one that was emotionally gratifying. And that's how my brother was. My brother, he was like, man, emotionally, he said, casual sex doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for me. He said, it's almost like having sex with a sex doll. He said, if you're going to have casual sex the rest of your life, you might as well just purchase a sex doll or something. He was like, he said, I don't get anything out of casual sex. Having just a bunch of one-night stands and weekend flings and that type of thing. He's like, I don't get anything out of that. And that's why my brother got married, man. Because, once he got to about the age of, I'd say 37, 38, 39, and no later than 41, 42, that's when he started looking for a wife. Yeah, I'd say no later than the age of 41, 42, my brother started looking for a wife. And he found one when he was 45. Yeah, the woman he's currently married to, he first met her when he was 45. They dated for about 6 months. Then they cohabitated for about 2 years. Then they got married. Yep, that's what they did. They dated for about 6 months. Then they start cohabitating, living together. They lived together for about 2 years, in an unmarried fashion. Then they got married in August 30th of 2008. So he's coming up on next month. The end of next month will be his 11th year marriage anniversary. And so, yeah, man, now you got other people I mentioned before, like one of my fraternity brothers who I happened to meet one time, legendary NBA basketball player, Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know how many young guys are familiar with Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain used to be the man back in the 1960s and very early 70s. Yeah, he was considered the most unstoppable offensive player in the NBA. But yeah, here I go with the Examiner again. I wrote an article about him in the Examiner. He was example somebody who was a lifelong bachelor. He never ever got married, not one time. Yeah, he said he didn't believe in it. Yeah, he said he didn't believe it. His claim to fame to do with women, he wrote a book where he said he slept with somewhere between 15 to 20,000 women over the course of his adult life. He slept with a minimum of roughly about 15,000 women and as many as 20,000 women over the course of his adult life. And he got shamed for it. A lot of people in the media criticized him for it and said it was wrong for him to kiss and tell about that. He didn't kiss and tell no names, though. He just kissed and told numbers. I didn't see anything wrong with what he did. Yeah, a lot of people categorized what he did was inappropriate kissing and telling. Kissing and telling is when you reveal the first and last names of your sexual partners, and particularly your casual sex partners. That's truly what truly kissing and telling is. But if you notice me, I rarely have ever mentioned the first or last names of women I've had casual sex with. I'll talk about the experiences I've had, but I don't kiss and tell using actual names. But yeah, I remember Will Chamberlain, that was the number one criticism he got, was that, particularly mainly from women, they said he was kissing and telling. But all he did was say, he said, I've had sex with a lot of women. But yeah, he said, I think in his autobiography, that he didn't really believe in marriage. He said he knew he wanted to fuck multiple women, and he would rather remain a bachelor and fuck multiple women than to get married to a woman and then cheat on her multiple times. His attitude was, it ain't no point in me getting married if I know for a fact I'm going to be cheating on my wife like every week or every other week. He was like, that don't even make sense. So Will Chamberlain is an example of someone that a long-term, strictly monogamous marriage wouldn't have worked out for. Who else? Warren Beatty was like that for a while, but then he ended up getting married at the age of 53. Yeah, he was one of the top womanizers. In the 1970s, he was considered like the top womanizer in the entertainment industry. Was Warren Beatty. Yeah, he was considered, his nickname at one point was Mr. Pussy. Mr. Pussy. That was his nickname. Yeah, Warren Beatty, man. But yeah, he slept with about the same amount of women. Yeah, it was rumored that Warren Beatty slept with somewhere between 12,000 and 15,000 different women. He wasn't as much, he was a womanizer, but he was almost more so what's known as, you've heard me use this term, a serial monogamous. Serial monogamous. Serial monogamous is almost similar to womanizer, but a little different. Womanizer is a guy who engages in a lot of one-night stands and weekend flings. One-night stands and weekend flings. Or if not a one-night stand, weekend fling, at most, maybe they might have casual sex with a woman for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'd say usually no more than like 4 to 6 weeks. No more than like 4 to 6 weeks. Serial monogamous would be a guy who engages in a high number of short-term, strictly monogamous relationships. Short-term, strictly monogamous relationships. In other words, they never have sex with 2 or more women at the same time. They only have sex with one woman, but it's for a short period of time. It might be like as short as like 2 or 3 months. As short as like 2 or 3 months. Or each relationship might last as long as 9 months to a year. 9 months to a year. That's a serial monogamous. I've covered that before in a couple of Patreon exclusive videos. Yeah, serial monogamous, again, is almost similar to a womanizer, but a little bit like a womanizer is when you're having sex with 2 or more women at the same time. You're having casual sex with 2 or more women at the same time. And most of your sexual relationships range anywhere from 1 day to no more than 5 or 6 weeks. That's a womanizer. But again, serial monogamous is when you're having sex with only one woman in a monogamous manner for a minimum, I'd say a minimum of roughly 2 months to no longer than about maybe 10, 11, or 12 months. That's a serial, like Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter was known as a serial monogamous. He's a professional athlete who was known as a serial monogamous. Matter of fact, he's now married. Yeah. Yep, Derek Jeter, he's now married. And then, of course, like I said, right in the middle between long-term strictly monogamous relationships and long-term strictly monogamous marriages and just flat-out promiscuity would be polyamory. polyamory is kind of like right in the middle. I've engaged in a lot of polyamorous relationships. Yeah, a polyamorous relationship is when you're in a relationship with a woman. Well, it's like 2 to 3 versions of a polyamorous relationship. There's 2 to 3 versions that would qualify for a polyamorous relationship. One, let's say you're married, but you and your wife are free to have sex, to have an additional lover as long as your spouse approves of it. So if I'm married and I want to take on at least a handful of additional lovers, and my wife is cool with that and says she wants to take on 1 or 2 additional lovers, and I give her my permission and approval, then that would be one version of being in a polyamorous relationship. A polyamorous relationship. Another version would be if I was married or had a fiance or a long-term girlfriend, and let's say my wife, fiance, or girlfriend just gave me a green light to engage in one-night stands and weekend flings with other women, but I couldn't. But she didn't approve of me having any type of ongoing relationship with any women, a long-term ongoing relationship. That's another form of a polyamorous relationship or an open relationship. Or it could be vice versa. Yeah, it could be vice versa. Sometimes polyamorous relationship, the spouse or partner will allow you to have multiple ongoing relationships, but no short-term relationships. And actually, that was the true first definition of polyamory, was if you had 2 or more long-term, basically you got 2 or more long-term romantic companions. That's actually the most formal definition of polyamory. Like, essentially, in simple terms, if you're a man and you got 5 fuck buddies, short-term fuck buddies, that would make you promiscuous. But if you're a man and you got, say, 2 or 3 long-term girlfriends, that would make you polyamorous. That would make you polyamorous. Yeah, so polyamorous is kind of halfway in between strict monogamy and promiscuity. You have an emotional bond with your spouse or partner. You spend a lot of time with her, both sexually and non-sexually, but either one of you two in a relationship or both of you two in a relationship have the freedom to see other people, if only occasionally. You have the freedom to have additional lovers, 1 or more additional lovers. That is a polyamorous relationship. Yes, I've had quite a few. I've had actually more long-term non-monogamous relationships in my life than I've had long-term strictly monogamous relationships in my life. Yeah, when it comes to long-term relationships, most of my long-term relationships have been polyamorous relationships. Yeah, again, I've only had like 2 or 3 long-term strictly monogamous relationships in my entire life. When it comes to strictly monogamous relationships, most of my strictly monogamous relationships have been short-term, like 11 months or less. 11 months or less have been my strictly monogamous relationships. When it comes to relationships that lasted a year or longer, that were strictly monogamous, at most, I've only had about 3 of those. Now, some men might be asking, Alan, from all the red pill information I get, all the blogs I read and discussion forums and message boards I read and the audio podcasts I listen to, the video podcasts I listen to, I just honestly don't see the benefit of marriage for men at all. I don't see the benefit. It seems like if you get divorced, women can take half of your financial assets, and they're more than likely going to gain full custody of the children. So what could possibly be the benefit of marriage for men? Well, there's at least a couple. There's a minimum, I would say 2 or 3 benefits for men. And I've never been married, so I'm not speaking from direct experience, But again, my brother's married. I got close friends of fraternity brothers who are married. And here's what I would assert are some of the benefits of marriage. Number one is if you want to have children, if you're interested in children, which is based on studies, that's at least half the reason why most men want to get married. Most men who typically want to get married is because they want to have someone to raise children with. They want to have someone to raise children with. Yeah. Like, if you hear about me getting married within the next year or two, I can guarantee you that's going to be 90 to 99% of the reason why I get married. I can tell you that right now. But if I get married, 90 to 99% of the reason why I would be getting married is for the sake of children. I don't want no baby mama, man. I would just be real with you. I don't want no baby mama. And I know a lot of guys who are like that. They don't want no baby mama. I don't want no baby mama, man. If I'm going to have children, I want a wife. If I'm going to have children, I want a wife. I don't want a baby mama. I know that's real popular in the 21st century for men to have just a baby mama as opposed to a wife, and for a woman to have a baby daddy as opposed to a husband. I ain't into that baby mama, baby daddy shit, man. I'm just going to tell you straight up. I am not into that at all. I do not want no baby mama, man. Because, see, if you have a baby mama, man, then that means that your baby mama, you don't have any say-so over the men she brings around your children, assuming she has at least 50% of the custody of your children. Now, if you got full custody, then it don't matter. But I'm talking about a situation where the woman has at least 50% or more of the custody of the children, man. Like, let's say I have a baby mama and she starts dating a guy that's like a cocaine user or a convicted felon or some other crazy type motherfucker, man. I don't want them motherfuckers around my kids. I don't want them motherfuckers around my kids. Real talk. I don't want them around my kids, man. And see, marriage guarantees that you can determine who shares the company of your kids, man. It's a guaranteed way to give you joint custody of your kids. It's a guaranteed way to give you joint custody of your children. I would say that's benefit number one, assuming you are interested. You know, some guys aren't interested in having children. I would say if you're a man that's really not if you don't have any children and you're not interested in having any children, then that's when I would say it's probably okay for you to forego marriage. But if you're interested in having children, at least one child, marriage is a guaranteed way to give you joint custody, man. Again, man, I don't want a baby mama, man. I don't want a baby mama. Nope. I have no interest in that. That's one of the reasons why I don't have any children right now. Like, I've had a lot of people ask me, they say, Alan, surely you've met women that you could have got pregnant if you wanted to. If you say you want children, how come you haven't gotten a woman pregnant? And I always tell them, man, I don't want no baby mama. I've never, ever wanted a baby mama. Never. I've never wanted a baby mama. Never, ever, ever. I've never wanted a baby mama. Number two. Benefit number two of marriage, next to it gives you almost automatic joint custody of your children. The second biggest benefit of marriage is, let's say you meet a woman that has a really domineering father. And I know those don't exist as much as they did 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. A lot of women don't even have fathers in the home. A lot of women don't even have a relationship. Excuse me. Burp number 1 and 2. A lot of women don't even have a relationship with their biological father. But let's say for those women who do, there's some women who have fathers that are very domineering, and basically they want to have a lot of impact in their daughter's life. The only way for you to prevent a woman you're dating father from not having more say-so in her life than you is to marry her. You notice in the wedding ceremony, they say, who is giving this woman away? You notice, at least in a Christian wedding, they always say that. who is giving this woman away, and it's usually that woman's father, stepfather, that means at the point of the wedding, the father, stepfather has to relinquish all of his say-so over his daughter or stepdaughter. He has to relinquish that. He's no longer her daddy. You're now her daddy, figuratively speaking. He's no longer the daddy. You the daddy once you put that ring on that finger. Yeah, man, I don't want to be dating a woman, man, and her father is trying to tell her what to do, what not to do, and just be real active in her life. I don't want that. No. I want total control over the woman. I want total control over the woman. So yeah, to me, that's the second benefit of marriage, man, is if you're dealing with a woman that happens to have a very domineering father or stepfather, you can force them to relinquish their influence over their daughter or stepdaughter's life by marrying them. Yeah. And then the third kind of semi-benefit, again, I'm not speaking from direct experience because I've never been married. I'm going by people I've observed marriage, is combination. You can save on taxes when you marry, and you got somebody legally that you can trust to easily pass on your assets to when you die. Easily pass on assets to when you die. You know, that was one of the reasons why marriage was first promoted in the first place, particularly monogamous marriages, was for the sake of having a seamless transition of assets when you pass away. Because if you pass away, and let's say at the time you pass away, you got 5 fuck buddies or 3 baby mamas, man, dude, it's going to be drama. It's going to be drama. It's going to be drama, man. Yeah, so that's my take on at least a couple of the benefits of marriage. Again, I don't think marriage you can classify it objectively as a totally great thing or a totally bad thing. I think most of it depends on who you choose to marry. The quality of woman, or for the women, the quality of man they choose to marry. That's what's going to make it. Like, I remember, this is in one of my books, I say this. One of my uncles told me, he said, if you choose the right woman to marry, marriage could be the closest thing to heaven you ever experienced on earth. But if you choose the wrong woman to marry, it'll be the closest thing to hell you ever experienced on earth. Patreon exclusive live stream Thursday, 4 o'clock Eastern. Peace.